Most people think their mortgage is fixed. They signed the papers, they locked in the 30-year rate, and they tucked that folder away in a drawer. And mentally, they checked the housing cost box is totally solved. Well, they were wrong. If you just open a letter from your county assessor, you're about to find out exactly how much of your fixed payment is actually going to jump this year. And in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about the exact mechanism that caused that. We'll do the real math together, and then I'll give you 3 levers you can actually control so you're not just reacting to the envelope. No ranting, no panic, just structure. So, you open that white envelope and you saw that bold number. Your home suddenly worth 30, maybe 40% more on paper. But you look around, hey, nothing inside your house changed. You didn't get a new kitchen and you didn't add a bedroom. The roof, it's the same age it was yesterday. And yet, now you're being taxed on a value you can't even spend. Now, if you feel blindsided, you're not crazy. You're caught in a mechanism most homeowners ignore until the escrow shortage notice hits your inbox. So, let's start with the quick math. If your property taxes increase by $1,200 per year, that's $100 per month. That's before the escrow adjustments. That's before your insurance increases. Now stack that over 12 months. That's not abstract. That's real cash flow. And that's why this matters. There's a strange psychological trap in a rising market because when you hear your home value went up, well, part of your brain, it celebrates. It feels like progress. It feels like wealth. You think, man, I bought at the right time. Feels like winning. Well, for about 5 seconds. Then the tax bill arrives and you realize something important. Your house rich, but your cash flow constrained. Now, you can't take a piece of the drywall to the grocery store and trade it for eggs, but your tax bill absolutely pulls from your monthly liquid income. And that's where the squeeze begins. So, how does this actually happen? How does someone who has never stepped inside your living room decide you owe $1,500 or $2,000 or more per year? Most counties use something called mass appraisal. They're not evaluating your leaky faucet, and they're not looking at your old carpet. They're looking at comparable sales. Now, if 3 houses down the street, they sold for record prices last year, that market heat gets applied to your home. It's an algorithm, and like most algorithms, it's blunt. It's important to understand that this algorithm, it's also inherently lazy. The county assessor's office, it's often understaffed and overwhelmed. They don't have the resources to be precise, so they use neighborhood profiles. And if your neighbor spent $100,000 on a custom backyard and a marble countertop kitchen, and then they sold that house for a premium, the algorithm assumes your house is now worth that premium too. It doesn't know your water heater's probably 15 years old. It doesn't know that your roof has 3 years of life left. It charged you for the luxury of your neighbor's renovations. It captures averages, not nuance. And here's the part people misunderstand, because property tax reassessments, they lag in the market, often by 12 to 24 months. So while headlines today talk about cooling markets or slowing sales, your tax bill may be now catching up to the peak prices of 2022 and 2023. Now, you're not paying based on today's sentiment. You're paying based on a delayed snapshot of yesterday's peak. That delay is what makes it feel sudden. So let's now do the full breakdown. Okay, old assessment, $320,000. New assessment, $395,000. That's a $75,000 increase at a 1.5% tax rate. That's like $1,125 a year. So divide that by 12, $94. But here's where the escrow domino falls. Most homeowners pay taxes through their mortgage servicer. A bank collects the projected amount of monthly, and they didn't collect enough last year to cover the higher tax bill. two things happen. One, your future monthly escrow payments increase. Two, you get an escrow shortage catch-up payment. So instead of that $94 increase, you might see $200 to $250 higher for a period of time. Now, ask yourself, maybe, why is banking being so aggressive with the escrow catch-up? Why didn't they just spread it out over a longer period? Well, here's the common sense answer. A bank, it isn't your partner. They're the lien holder. To them, unpaid tax bills is a superior lien, which means if you don't pay the county can actually take the house before the bank can. So when they see that tax increase, they're not helping you save. They're going to be protecting their collateral with your cash flow. They will always overcollect rather than undercollect because, look, they want a massive cushion between them and the tax man. They are essentially taking interest-free loan from you to ensure their investment is safe. So when you see that escrow shortage notice, realize it's the bank shifting 100% of that risk onto your kitchen table. Now add rising insurance premiums because when valuations increase, so does the estimated rebuild cost. That's how a fixed mortgage becomes meaningfully more expensive without touching your interest rate. And here's the real issue. If your housing costs are rising by 5% per year, but your income isn't, your housing costs as a percentage of income is climbing, hey, that's how the middle class squeeze is going to work. Not as a dramatic explosion, but as a series of $150 to $250 monthly increases. It's quiet, it's compounding, it's easy to ignore until they stack. This isn't about outrage, this is about awareness. So, what can you do to control? Because frustration doesn't lower the bill. It's about a shift in identity. You have to stop being a tenant of your home and start being the CEO of your household. A tenant just pays the bill and complains about it to the landlord. A CEO looks at the line items. They identify the cost drivers and find the leverage points. If your biggest vendor, the county, just hiked their prices by 20%, a CEO doesn't just hope for the best. They audit the bill. They look for the exemptions. So they pivot. First, appeal. Most people complain to neighbors. Very few actually file appeals. Look at the comparable sales the county used. If they used homes with finished basements and yours is unfinished, if they used recently renovated homes and yours has deferred maintenance, you may have grounds. It's paperwork, it's bureaucratic, but reductions do happen. Second, check those exemptions. Are you registered for a homestead exemption? Are you eligible for senior or veteran or primary residence caps? In some states, the annual increases are legally capped, but only if you're properly enrolled. Don't assume the county has applied those for you. You got to audit your own life. Third, anticipate trajectory. Stop modeling housing as a fixed expense because in 2026, housing, it's variable costs. If the taxes have risen 20 to 30% over 5 years, it's not a fluke. That's a trend, and trends require planning. Here's the broader pattern. When asset prices inflate, tax bases also inflate. Now, local budgets expand, and once the budget expands, it rarely contracts, and that becomes a new baseline, which means your financial strategy for the next 5 years cannot look like your strategy for the last 5. If housing is now more structurally volatile, your income, savings, and planning, it must adapt. That's not pessimism, that's preparation. So let's close correctly with a common sense framework. Step 1. Separate emotion from the arithmetic. The letter, of course, it's going to make you angry. The math makes you informed. And put your CFO hat on, pull the numbers, calculate the impact before reacting. And step 2, control those levers. Appeal inaccurate assessments. Apply for those exemptions. Adjust your budget early. Don't drift into the passive mode because it never works out. Step 3, look, reduce your exposure. Understand the trajectory. If your housing cost volatility in your region is accelerating, factor that into your long-term decisions. Housing, it's not just a purchase price, it's a tax trajectory. And that trajectory, it matters. Your home didn't change. The world around did. That assessment followed, and now the bill is due. The goal isn't outrage. It's going to be awareness, because the earlier you see the math, the more options you have. So stay level-headed and do the math. So this is all I have for you today. I'll talk to you again real soon. Take care, everyone.